Welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast. It's Amanda. It's February, and I am so excited to kickstart the month with you. I hope January got you some momentum. I hope that you've got a vision, and we are continuing some really juicy conversations around here. And today I'm going to be sharing how I sold out a program called the Framework Builder Lab. You've heard me talk about it here with a PDF, not a website sales page, not a fancy, I paid somebody to write my copy, paid someone to design a beautiful web page. I sold it on its first round with a PDF. And there's a lot of reasons why I wanted to record this episode. One is my commitment, as I mentioned, to financial transparency and also just letting you guys know that you can do things messy and create massive success. And I saw this quote yesterday that really hit me, and that is, in your quest to do everything perfect, if your aim, let's phrase it this way, if your aim is perfection, then when you fail, you'll quit. That's really what it's about. And I see this happen in so many beginning coaches, especially because the comparison or their baseline is judged off of somebody else who's been doing this for years and years and years, or has maybe committed to just investing in massive team and being willing to have a lot of expense in order to grow. None of those things are wrong. It's just that we have to omit looking outside of ourselves and just keep our blinders on, stay in our lane. And so today I'm going to kind of walk you through the steps I took to sell out our program called the Framework Builder Lab on the first round, which we would call the beta round, and why I did that. And what I learned from the process and where we are at now. So if you haven't heard about the Framework Builder Lab, maybe you're brand new to our podcast. Welcome if you are. I'm super pumped that you're here. But the Framework Builder Lab is our signature program where we teach coaches how to build out their signature coaching framework. And if you want to learn more about that specifically, you can head on over to amanda-walker.com/lab. I'll link it here in the show notes as well. But essentially, there's two options. You can join the lab independent study where you consume all the content on your own, or you can join the lab in a live coaching option where when you join, you also get 8 coaching calls live with me to support you through the process. So to be frank, I want to rewind and go way back because there's some context here that's really important. Many of you, or if you don't, I was a high school teacher for 10 years. And so one of the zones of genius I had during that time frame, and really throughout my life as I look back in other ways, is I have an ability to map things out in my head and start at the end and reverse engineer into the present moment of what I want. It just comes very naturally for me. And so this was one of the gifts I had as a teacher. I could know exactly where I wanted my students to be at the end of a lesson, end of a week, end of a unit, and then reverse design that process. And so I've carried that skill set into my business very naturally, not really knowing that that was something that other people really struggled with or had a hard time organizing all these big, beautiful ideas and distilling it down into a concise step-by-step process. And so as I started coaching coaches, I could see that they were missing a framework, and I was very easily able to work with them one-to-one and help them develop their own frameworks. And then I had this super big aha moment. I knew more coaches needed this system because what happens when you have a signature framework is a whole lot of things. When you have a signature framework, your confidence excels because you're like, oh, I have this methodology. And so you show up into coaching sessions with more confidence because you know where you're going to take your client. You also let go of some of this imposter feeling because you see that, oh, I have this methodology. It's mine. I own it. It's proprietary. And so that allows you to show up with more authenticity and be a little different than everybody else doing what you are doing in your niche. And lastly, it curates much better results because you have a repeatable process, and then you're able to focus on the human being in front of you that's not a robot, and then customize it around your unique framework. And so I saw all these things happening for my clients, and I knew that I needed to create this space to do this in a large group setting because I knew more people needed it. And I wanted to be able to build something into my business that was super impactful and more of a bite-sized container. And so this is where the light bulbs are on. I went to my team and I said, hey, I want to just try this 6-week experience where I help coaches build this framework. I've been doing this in one-to-one. I want to try it in a group environment. And so I was behind the scenes working on the content, really locking in my own framework more clearly, because it is very different teaching in a one-to-one than it is a group experience, which is, again, something we do teach inside the BDC as well. And so I decided that I've learned from my own failures in the past. There were times where I wanted to launch something and I was like, we've got to have the most perfect sales page. We've got to go through this whole process. In fact, when I had decided, just to, again, be totally transparent, you guys know my Sunday process called Grounding Day, I decided I wanted to make that a passive product. And before just trying it, I honestly invested $25,000 in an environment, in a community, and a mentor that I thought would help me make that a passive revenue stream. It totally flopped, by the way. I'm not afraid to say that. It didn't flop. It's just that, okay, well, it kind of flopped. It was that I put a lot of energy into it and I probably should have done a lot more of testing the market for it. And so I learned from that experience. Like, this time, you guys, we're going to do it super simple. And so I told them, we're just going to put everything on a PDF. So I'm going to open a Google document. And instead of building out a sales page, I'm going to build out a sales page on a PDF so that I have somewhere to drive people when I start talking about it. And I'm going to create this PDF as though it were a sales page. It's not going to look beautiful. I'm going to do it in a Google Word document, and I'm going to save it as a PDF. And we're literally just going to use that Drive link, the Google Drive link, to send people to that page. And so at first they were like, are you sure you want to do that? I was like, I'm 100% sure. I don't want to spend any time and energy on this part because I don't want all of our resources to go to something until we keep testing it. And so my mission was 100 people over time before we would build out an actual sales page. And I'm going to drop the screenshot actually of the PDF version right here, because what we ended up doing wasn't exactly what I sought out to do for a few reasons, which I'll share in a moment. But if you're listening, I want to encourage you to go visit the show notes too, because you can take a look at where it is, what it was, and where it is now. But my goal is to help you see that you don't need a fancy website or even a fancy email marketing system, that you can use free resources to get your message into the world and make a massive impact. And so these are the steps that we did that in. So I want to also say that you don't need a website yet at all, especially those of you that are in the building phases. In fact, you truthfully don't need a website at all. And I think there's some misunderstandings, especially if you're not as tech familiar, is there are plenty of resources or systems that you can tap into, even something like a ConvertKit or something like a Kajabi, that allows you to build what would be just a single landing page. So instead of putting energy and time and $3,000 to $10,000 building out a robust website, you can invest a much smaller amount of money into one of these programs that allows you to build a landing page, which is simply a place where you can drive people to go and see your service or just an about you. So you could have a landing page that's about you. You could have a landing page for your services. I just think in the beginning, it's a complete waste of time and energy for you to go build out a robust website. It's very costly, but honestly, in the beginning, we just lack a lot of clarity and a lot of the messaging in order to just nail a website. That's something that we're consistently refining right now. And when I built my website in the beginning off of YouTube, which you could easily do, but it took a lot of time and energy. I'm not going to lie about that. But even when I launched it, it still didn't articulate exactly good enough of what I was doing. It took me years to refine the copy. So I would just encourage you to start simple and imperfect there. I just don't personally recommend building a website as you are, right in the beginning. I think that's a overtime project. And so this takes us into the steps. So what did I do to sell out my program using a PDF? So first is I did all of the behind the scenes work to map out the program and to kind of have a vague idea of what the process would look like. I knew that I was going to be talking about it. Excuse me, you guys, I'm recovering still from all this junk inside my head and chest. But I knew that I was going to be talking about it on the podcast. I knew I was going to be sharing it on social media. And so I knew that I was going to direct traffic eventually to a place where people could learn more about the lab and where they could attend a free workshop I was going to be hosting. So I did kind of the pre work, if you will. I knew that the process was going to look like this: talk about the lab, invite people to a workshop about the lab where I would launch it. And from that, I would drive traffic to this PDF where they could learn more about it. And from that PDF would be a link for them to pay. So it's simple: talk about it, free workshop, PDF, cart checkout. That's all I needed. Talk about it was free, free workshop, pretty much free, PDF, free, cart checkout. Obviously, you have to have some way for them to pay. So, right now, any single one of you could follow that process and do this right now. So, I want you to know this is very accessible. And for every single coach in my community inside the BDC right now, these are where I'm supporting them to create this system inside their business consistently. It does not take a lot of resources, it takes consistency. And so I knew that this was going to be the steps to get them there. So that's 4 steps, you guys, just 4 steps. And what I want to reiterate is I am such a fan of trying to monetize things as you're building them, or I like to say, build a ship as you sail it. Too many times I see coaches get stuck in the perfection. They have to have every nuance of their program built out. I want to be honest, that was not how it was. I'd obviously been using this framework with one-to-one clients. I'd never taught it in a group of 30 to 40 coaches. So I knew that I was going to need to have some flexibility in there, but I had to have the meat and potatoes locked in. So I had the meat and potatoes, and I was giving myself opportunity that after each session, I was going to spend a great deal of time just distilling down what went well and what didn't go well so that I could either pick up the pieces on the next session that I needed to, or double down and know, like, okay, for sure moving forward, this is what I would like it to happen. We did decide to even build a workbook to go along with the first cohort of the FBL. And I want to be honest, we sent out Typeform reviews to learn more about, like, what did they love about the program. People only rated us like a 3 or 4 out of 10 on the workbook. They basically said this needs work. And so that was fantastic because we knew moving forward we had a lot of room for improvement in the workbook. And by the time we got to the second cohort, we were aware of that and already made some changes. So I want to be clear that build a ship as you sail it, SAIL, and start with that messy action, because that proved to be really beneficial. I wasn't caught up in all those details. I was more focused on getting people into it and making sure that the things I did have down on my sales page, which was a PDF, were enough information that they would join in. And so when we were developing our sales page as a PDF, like I said, it was in a Google Drive document, so a Google Doc. That's when my OBM, the amazing Tina, said, what if we just transfer this over to Canva, because we could make it look a little nicer in there. And Canva, you guys, actually has a multitude of resources. So Canva could be a place where you actually build it and you could use a link. Canva allows you to share a link directly. So that could be another way. Or you can save it as a PDF. As we did, since we do have a website, we made a pretty link, which is like a pretty looking URL to drive people to it. So when I said the words out loud, they knew where to go. So there are like start simple and PDF, and then there's little ways to advance this. And I'll drop the link to some of these things I'm mentioning inside the show notes as well. And so what all of this does, right, is simplicity and free steps. What all of this is really doing is it's giving you the space to validate your offer before you put too much time and energy into making the next move. What it does for me is it holds me accountable to just doing the damn thing. I said I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to let it be messy, but I'm not going to put all my time and energy into things that I think need attention, because more often than not, the areas that I think are going to need tweaked are not where my clients actually struggle or where the action actually needs to take place. And so what this did for us is it was like, let's put it out there, let's fill it up, and then let's make the modifications from there that actually are going to be the things that move the needle. So the way I filled it up were a couple things. I was sharing consistently on social media. I talked about it nonstop. And I didn't honestly get super icky about it in the main feed on my Instagram, which is where I spend most of my time. I did a lot of like build up around why a signature framework is essential for coaches. And then I just said, "Hey, let me know if you want to attend this free workshop I'm hosting by commenting framework in the comments, or reply with framework and I'll send you the link to join the workshop." So for around 2 weeks, that's all I was doing, was just inviting people into this free workshop. Inside the free workshop, what I talked about are some of the most common mistakes that coaches make around framework building. So, the three most common mistakes that keep coaches from not actually having a great framework or having one at all. We also sent a few emails to our list to invite them into the Framework Builder workshop. And then the other thing I did was a lot of behind the scenes. I invited by hand what I call high organic touch. I was hot marketing behind the scenes. So I was sending voice messages to coaches that I think could benefit from the workshop. I was sending voice messages to colleagues to let them know I was launching this new offer. So I was doing everything behind the scenes that you may not have seen to fill up and get our workshop into a place where we ended up having 112 signups. So I'm going to share some of the numbers with you because I do think those are extremely important for you to know over time, so that you get an idea of what's happening and the actual physical numbers that are going on behind the scenes. And so I'm going to share those with you right now as I pull them up here. We have them all logged in our system, and I just closed them out by accident. So that first workshop, so we've had several signature framework workshops, but I want to talk about that first one. Our goal was to have 20 signups, to be honest. I was like, all right, let's get 20 signups in there, and this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have, enough to test my offer, and that's going to be a beautiful thing for us to move towards and be able to really guarantee that this is something that we want to spend time and energy in. So we had 112 participants in this workshop. We had nearly a 52% show up rate. So nearly half the people, or just over half rather, of the people that signed up showed up, which is awesome. When we look at industry averages being around 25 to 35%, I will take that any day, by the way. And then we had a 25% conversion rate, which means that we had roughly, like a quarter of the people that were live with us bought right there on the spot, which was amazing. So by the time that workshop was over, I had already exceeded the goal and sold out the spots that we had planned. When all was said and done, we ended up having 36 signups that first cohort. And that was enough. I know I had 36 people. I was nearly 40% of the way to the goal before I had said, I'm going to build out this sales page. And so it was an amazing way, surpassed my goal, to be able to just say, hey, just this little tiny PDF, like I can sell from this PDF and I can sell it out. It's not just the sales page alone. So all of you thinking that you have to have this beautiful sales page or these things like tech things to really bring people to your offers, it's not true. It's what you do beforehand. It's not just inviting people coldly into your offer. It's warming them up with some sort of way to add value. For me, that was a workshop. And from that workshop, I was able to show them that there's so much value in having a framework. And because of that, they're like, yes. The other thing that we did that I think sold it out is we tested it at a beta price point, $79. So they got 6 weeks in the Framework Builder Lab with me for $79. I live coached all 6 weeks. So every week I was live. And then I also told them if they signed up immediately within the first 24 hours, they would also have access to 2 implementation calls, which were at 30 and 60 days post the Framework Builder Lab. And the reason I wanted to do this selfishly was to see how people's work was coming along. I really care about results. I don't want people to buy into a program and not show up. And so I knew that if I was able to dangle the carrot of follow up, like where people have a hard time implementing, then that might also be a super bonus for some people to sign up. So that in the end ended up being really fruitful because I had people like, I didn't miss the timeline. I want those 2 extra calls. And so that was fantastic. And so I sold it out through a simple PDF, Google Docs that we did end up making in a Canva template, which is also free. Everything I'm talking about is free today. So if you're looking for excuses as to why you can't do this, surprise, you have none. It's about just putting it out there in a messy way. From this, what we did end up doing was we did send out a midway and an end of Framework Builder Lab testimonial form and just feedback. And as I said, we clearly flopped on the workbook. And I kind of knew that. I was just wanting something best of my knowledge that I could give them to help follow along, but it was too confusing and it just didn't do a good job. And so we refined that. The next cohort, by the way, we sold out to 65 people. So we exceeded our 100. So we have a sales page now. And we proved our offer enough that we know it's a place that we're spending a lot of time and energy in 2024. So now the FBL looks a little different. We've tested the offer. We actually know we don't want to make it a high ticket offer because we're really focusing on volume. And we also know that it is a massive opportunity to build trust with our audience. So our audience comes into the FBL. And the thing that I didn't mention is we had a significant number, 20 to 25% in each cohort of the FBL come in and join the Best Damn Coach, which is our next tier offer. And so all of those for me are massive light bulbs on build trust, let people know my style, come learn with me. And when they saw that value, they were like, oh my gosh, I want Amanda in my life. And I want to keep, experience. And so I knew that I wanted to keep the Framework Builder Lab very accessible to people. And I also knew that that $79 beta price point couldn't last just simply with ad spend and with team and with the amount of energy and time we had to take that price point up. And so now we're super excited. We have two price points. We have a total independent study version because a lot of people said, can I just buy it and do it myself? And we didn't really have that ready yet. We do now. And so we have that independent study version. And then we also have the live version where you can sign up and then you get 8 weeks of calls where you can come ask questions. I can walk you through the steps live. You also get access to, of course, the passive videos. You get lifetime access to both those things. And we know how valuable having a framework is. And we see the momentum that it creates inside of our coaches. And so, again, go check out the lab if you've not been a part of it at amanda-walker.com/lab. It will blow your mind. And also, if you have questions about any of the steps that I shared today, if I missed details, if you're feeling like this isn't like possible for you, please reach out to me because it is. And no matter where you're at in the journey, the 4 steps that I just walked you through, let's review them again. Talk about it nonstop, and then direct traffic to a free value way that you can teach people about it. For me, that was a workshop. Then give them a call to action to that free PDF, that sales page, if you will, that costs you nothing to make so they can learn more if needed. And then you just need that payment. How are you going to collect payment? A link for them to check out. You could use Kajabi. You could use, I'm pretty sure you could use Stripe directly. You could use Simplero. You could use Honeybooks. You could use Dubsado. I don't know what it is, but all you need is that little ability to collect payment. 4 steps, accessible to all of us, that helped me sell out my Framework Builder Lab on the first cohort. And no doubt, this is a process that's going to help you fill up your client roster as well. You do not have a group program. You don't need a group program to do this. You could follow these steps and do it the same way. And the call to action could be book a call with you to talk more about your one-to-one services. So please know that this can be modified and adjusted. It's about taking messy action, building the ship as you're sailing it, and allowing yourself to go through this process to validate your offer over and over and make it better every single time. So I'm so excited for you to take what I shared today and implement it. And again, if you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram at A Walk My Way. That's a great place to send me a DM and chat more.